I love that story. I love that story because the depth and detail that Burke gave us. And I love that story because it illustrates another tie Nick Saban has to Ohio State. Because if many of you saw in the upload earlier today where I told you the story about how Nick Saban's time as secondary coach for Earl Bruce at Ohio State really shaped his philosophy around defense and how it ended up him getting fired. Like gave up 621 yards passing to an Illinois quarterback on a team that had lost more games than it won. Had gave up 500 yards passing to a Purdue quarterback, right? Gave up 3,200 yards passing in 1981. That's like unheard of, right? You don't do that. Like 3,000 yard passing seasons are still cool. They were unheard of in the 80s, and yet his secondary was giving him up. And he thought, look, if I had guys that were more versatile playing strong safety, we'd be better. I can't just have oversized linebackers out there getting cooked by wideouts. Bruce disagreed. So you could see how all that's going together and how it has shaped how Saban, who still sits in on secondary meetings, views defensive back play, right? I've always found it really enjoyable to hear Nick Saban talk about defensive backs because footwork, hand placement, leverage, all of it goes into his thinking. Minkah Fitzpatrick is, for me, the model for a modern defensive back. And there's a reason why his corners, his safeties continue to be first-round draft selections, right? Continue to be dudes that get the nod, right? Xavier McKinney, Trayvon Diggs. This year it's going to be Pat Surtain. Josh Jobe is amazing, right? Jordan Battle's having a year. It's outstanding, right? I really enjoy that part of it. I also think that it's interesting to think about it from the standpoint of how Nick Saban's star players talk in front of the media. You can hear him coming through. They're bland. They don't have a whole lot of anecdotes to give you. They don't want to say anything that could be construed as ammo for the opposition. They're complimentary of the opposition, but not too complimentary. They keep their answers short. They refer to any praise that they get still to this day as rat poison. Mac Jones did it following the game that they won in the Rose Bowl, right? Talking about how you feel about the Heisman. That's a rat poison question. Like, come on, man. That's how they get down over there. On the flip side, you have an Ohio State team that is going for a story of stories. And Ryan Day has been adamant about this, and I've written about this at foxsports.com, in that this story is not one you would make up. One, because the circumstances are not those that generally come to storytellers, right? One of the reasons that I love sports is because it gives me stories to tell, and stories that I want to tell, and stories that are fun. If you said that Ohio State, coming off of a loss in the Fiesta Bowl against Clemson, was going to get an opportunity to avenge that loss, that'd be sexy enough. That'd be good enough, like in a playoff setting. Add to that, canceling the season. Watching Shaun Wade and Wyatt Davis opt out and then opt back in. Hearing that Haskell Garrett got shot in the face and is still one of the better defensive tackles in all of college football right now. Trey Sermon, who got off to a horrible start and a slow start, so much so that Ryan Day was wondering if they made a mistake in going to get him out of the portal from Oklahoma, has rushed for over 500 yards in the past 2 games and has been the hottest tailback in all of football. What Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave have done. Garrett Wilson choosing Ohio State over his in-city, let alone in-state Texas, because he wanted to be developed and he trusts Brian Hartline and that offense to develop him into the kind of player that he is. You know, he gives this quote upon committing to Ohio State about the lack of development that had happened at Texas, and now we're talking about him getting a chance to play in the national championship game. What you know about Ryan Day and his rise, right? The game that he was an underdog in against Clemson, yet again, is he going to get beat down by Dabo, the man who ranked his team 11th? For that matter, Nick Saban ranked that team 5th. Is he going to be able to beat this coach as he's been able to beat almost everybody else? And then to do that, there's a lot of reasons to believe that Ohio State can win this game, but you'd be right to pick Alabama. I picked Alabama 360 days ago. Okay? I still see no reason to get off that belief. But Ohio State has the talent and they have the scheme to go and do this. Now, how healthy Justin Fields is going to tell us a lot. How healthy he looks against a very fast defensive front is going to tell us a lot. Because that was the thing that was really still jaw-dropping about the chasm between Notre Dame's personnel and Alabama's personnel. One of the first plays from scrimmage, Miller Forstall is outrunning Notre Dame's corners. Like, he's literally faster than them. Now, Notre Dame ain't special at corner. They were average, right? They had a grad transfer and a freshman out there. All right. Kyle Hamilton and the Woo Assassin were the two dudes that you want to depend on. You stay out of the middle of the defense and you make them go side to side, you got a chance there. I want to see if the speed on the field is that demonstrative. Because I mentioned earlier in the show, Baron Browning getting the corner turned on him by Trevor Lawrence was something I did not expect to see. If Trevor Lawrence can turn the corner on you, what can Najee Harris do? What can Brian Robinson do? What can Jaleel Billingsley do? How are they going to spread you out? One of the things that Ryan Day and Saban spoke to in the Zoom call today about was how the wide receiver position has really become your avenue for explosive plays. And anytime you want to throw the football, you have a better chance at an explosive play. But both of those men are very clear about being able to run the football allows for those explosive plays on the outside because you get one-on-one matchups. And every defensive coordinator that I've ever spoken with will tell me it's about how good are we at each position, because guarantee the offensive play caller is going to watch film. He's going to decide who our weak players are, and he is going to attack them. So it does us no good that Patrick Surtain is a no-fly zone for Ian Book if Josh Jobe can't lock down Ben Skronik or Avery Davis or Javon McKinley. That is what Nick Saban has gone to build, right? One of the things that he said about returning to college football from the NFL is, look, you should come to think of the NFL as more socialist than capitalist when it comes to how they allow for teams to get better or worse. The reason I say that is because you got the draft. The worst teams get the best draft positions. The best teams get the worst draft positions. The worst teams get the easiest schedules. The best teams get the toughest schedules, right? Saban really disliked that because he felt that his only advantage as a coach was being able to outwork people. That means outworking them in recruiting as much as it does watching film and breaking down film. And if you can outwork people in recruiting, which I know there are so many coaches that can't stand it, you're going to be that much better. He would say, look, I might be able to get a first-round draft pick as a head coach at Miami if it hasn't already been traded away. I can get 10 first-round draft picks in one class at Alabama. It's that simple. And when you look at how he has stacked talent on both sides of the ball, you can't argue with that, right? Like, this 2017 class might be the greatest class ever at Alabama and for Nick Saban, and maybe the greatest class of all time to go to one school. I mean, from Najee Harris to Tua Tagovailoa to Mac Jones to Jerry Jeudy to Henry Ruggs to Devontae Smith to on down the line. They are ridiculously talented. And a lot of those guys, Alex Leatherwood, are going to be first-round draft selections, if not day one draft selections, then obviously second or third round draft selections because they've been that good. And when people refer to Alabama, they refer to that team that is going to play in the NFL, right? To play against an SEC opponent is to have the tape that an NFL scout, analyst, GM, coach is going to watch first, and where they're going to generate a lot of their observations and a lot of their beliefs about you as a player. That's how much it means to play in that league. That's why we continue to talk about that league being so dominant, right? As much as it's fun to talk about what the Big 12 did in bowl games over in 2020, going undefeated, going 5-0, they ain't playing for a national championship and haven't played for a national championship in a decade. It's that simple, right? I mean, there's no other way to look at it. It's been outside of Alabama, Clemson, LSU, Ohio State. Show me the Big 12 team that has played in the national championship, let alone won one, right? That's why we're constantly harping on these things. That's why these things matter. And when you take into account the process and how Saban makes these goals attainable by saying, focus on the next catch, focus on the next tackle, focus on the next play, you can really eat an elephant a spoonful at a time. And that's how I was taught to go about building, right? My mom was very clear about this growing up. RJ, you can do anything if you just break it down into small bites of the elephant. Pretty soon the elephant's going to be gone. And in Alabama, that's what they do. And they live for that process of eating a spoonful at a time. And they don't live for the process of people telling you how good you are at eating the elephant, right? I find that to be really inspiring.